Where's Kelly? Kelly's gonna read our invitation.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I haven't been back in this room as well. Around but this is where my Rotary career started 26 years ago. So I'll be back in here as Gates in Rotary Club. For invocation today, I woke up this morning as I always do, and I read an invocation, a devotion. It's called Jesus. Some of you read it too. It's always really pertinent and always allows me to think about things. And today is today's devotion I'm going to read to you, but it is really about being in the moment today, what's given today. And I was reminded about that a lot this year. This year, I lost some really, really close people to me. Both of them, the two people that I call mentors. Mo Milani, who I worked with for 30 years, Eddie Bridges, who is executive director of Wildlife Habitat Foundation, my other mentor, but my mentors I lost this year. And two of my closest friends I lost in the last 6 weeks. So, we're promised today, we're only promised today. Today's devotion is about doing what we can in the moment today. So today's devotion is this. Do not worry about tomorrow. This is not a suggestion, but a command. I divide time into days and nights so that you would have manageable portions of your life. My grace is sufficient for you, but its sufficiency is only one day. When you worry about the future, you heap day upon day in troubles into your flimsy brain. You stagger under this heavy load, which I never intended for you to carry. Throw off this oppression burden with one quick brush of trust. Anxious thoughts meander and crisscross in your brain, but trusting me brings you directly into my presence. As you thus affirm your faith, shackles of glory fall off instantly. Enjoy my presence, continually my trusting in you. We can bow our heads. Father, I thank you for this day. Let us all just remember that we are only present in the person standing in front of us, the moments that are before us. Let's embrace those times and have you shed the light on the rest of our days. And all these things we pray for. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Of the things we think, say, and do, is the truth. It is fair to all concerned. Will build goodwill and other friendships. Will be beneficial to all concerned. Yes, we have 33 members in attendance, and we have one guest. Yes.
Both of my colleagues, Maria Sturgeon. Maria and her husband just moved here from Davidson, and she's our compliance director. I like to be good friends with my compliance people. And then our guest speaker, Emery Ashley, who I will introduce. You have birthdays?
I do. Well, I'll tell you what. This will be important. Yeah, one play.
He's missing an accent.
Ah, okay. I figured that. Yeah, I know. And this church is part of the birthday. Wedding anniversary. I'm Christian. Right there is, yeah. This Jill at birthday, we love to drive next week, and that's it.
Thank you.
How
about some happy dollars?
Yeah, I just want to make an announcement real quick. Saturday morning, World Beers, 8:30, we'll do street clean. Like I said, the email, I'm not going to send 100 emails anymore. I'm just going to start calling. So, look forward to seeing you. Oh, Saturday.
All right, happy dollar.
All right.
Somebody has to be happy.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, well, let's go while we check up here. He took the job on the ground. He's moving at the end of the month. And like my last word from yesterday on this record, that's the last of the stuff Be cool, slow down, take the radar checker, turn on ways, be careful. He said, I don't need a radar checker now, I'll get in trouble in Virginia. And less than an hour and a half later, he calls from Hillsborough. Does anybody have a really good attorney who can help me out with a speeding ticket in the Hillsborough area? 9 to 65. Quite simple. Yeah. You got to know how to drive. You're just sitting there like, really? Just two shots.
Just thank many of you for attending my mother's service. She's 95, passed away last week. We had a wonderful service. Thank you for the thoughts and prayers. It was a good run. My father made it to 95. He's right there with him now. It was all good. It was a celebration. Thank you.
It's just weird, John, that's staring at me.
Maggie graduated from NC State through COVID. Told me at the end of COVID, she said, or at the end of graduation, she said, Dad, I'm moving across. I don't care what I'm doing, I'll wait table. I then started looking for a job, and as a technical major, down there. But she got a job with a great company down there. Some of you probably know it's called Free Fly. They make great outdoor fishing equipment or gear. And all sustainable fabric like bamboo and things that fit right in her. Right. I appreciate all of you going on, searching out Free Fly. And I'm sure.
Kelly, I saw that. I saw this picture of Kelly sitting on a boat, Free Fly hat, and this thing. He looked like a commercial for Free Fly. Literally, were. Well, as I was driving Rotary this morning, son coming off, I saw that old granddad tell me, he said, there was never a sunset so beautiful that it was worth waking up to see.
Nice. I have a couple of announcements. We had a board meeting. I actually moved it this week, next Tuesday morning. So if anyone wants to attend at my board room, 800 Green Valley. Children of Vietnam tournament is Friday, September 10th. So let's support Dan and the Children of Vietnam. Pick Scott, November 6th. And there is a volunteer opportunity for Stuff the Bus. I think Preston or Summit is sponsoring this in August 7th at Charlotte on Longdale and the one out in Windover. So they need people to hand out flyers as people go into the store. So if you're interested, let me know, and I'll also send out a flyer by email. And I think Gigi had it. Yes.
Yesterday we had our first 505 social year. We were about 10 of us at South End Brewery. We had a lot of fun. We also celebrated Bastille Day. It was yesterday. So lots of fun. Danielle taking the lead in scheduling the 505. We have them every week. The first week will be on a Tuesday, and we're doing that because some folks have attended on Wednesday. So we figured out it would be one Tuesday to allow more people to come to our social. And with this that we will publish the group, we want to 410 to 505 is supporting local businesses. That's one of the reasons we went to South and yesterday. We're going to different local business every week. We would love you to join us. Bring friends. We want to make that a fellowship opportunity as well as a business networking opportunity that will help with the points. So please join us. I would love to have you, and it's going to be a fun time.
And recruit members.
That's right.
That's smart too. Does anybody else have any announcements? Well, it's my pleasure today to introduce one of my friends and colleagues, Emery Ashley. Emery is a trust officer and advisor at Piedmont Trust, where we work, and he's been serving the Richardson family for over 6 years now. He brings a fresh perspective with a Southern gentleman approach to his work. Prior to Piedmont, Emery studied trust and wealth management at Campbell University, and he held 2 summer internships in U.S. Trust in California and Texas. He's also a North Carolina licensed attorney, and I would say he comes from a family of attorneys. I think grandfather and father. And he was in private practice focusing on estate planning, real estate, appellate research, and minor criminal cases. He was born and raised in the small town of Smithfield, North Carolina, which is the neighboring and sister town to Selma, North Carolina, which is the birthplace of Lunsford Richardson II. He often comments on his appreciation of this connection and how it motivates his service and dedication to the Richardson family. And aside from his work, and I really don't know how he has time, he enjoys running, reading, baseball, and he's also an accomplished musician and plays in a band with his brothers. He didn't put this in there. And he spends time, loves to spend time with his family. He has a lovely wife, Jordan, and they have 2 children, Millie and Ellie. And Jordan is also in the trust business and works at First Citizen on the 3rd floor where Chip Hill is. So welcome, Emery. He's going to talk to us about Greensboro Richardson family connections.
Yeah, I'll get it up. Maybe. I lost my mouse. There it is. Uh-oh, I'm on the wrong slide. That's the end? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get fired. No.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you all for having me. Good morning. I'm Emery Ashley, and it is an honor to be with you here today. I am both grateful and excited to talk with you all about Greensboro and the story of Big Stepper Road, its inventor, Lunsford Richardson, and his family. It is my hope that you all will enjoy the next 25 minutes or so of fractions and notes that I have very much today. At least as far back to the early 18th century, the ancestors of Lunsford Richardson were inhabitants of eastern North Carolina, in particular, Johnson County. The family's homestead, known as Parker Heights, is located on the outskirts of Southern. At Parker Heights, the family owns and operates a grist mill, which they use to make grits, cornbread, and other grain-based products. The mill remains active to this day and is the oldest operating grist mill in all of North Carolina. In fact, it is the feature story of the February 2019 issue of our state news. Perhaps the first known connection between Greensboro and the Richardson family was in the late 1790s, when Joseph Richardson, the grandfather of Lunsford, studied medicine and apprenticed under David Caldwell right here in Piedmont. 60 years later, Lunsford is born in Selma and is the youngest of 6 children. He is a natural student and graduated from Davidson College in 1865 with high honors. He earns a 4-year degree in just 3 years. He particularly enjoys the study of chemistry and Latin, and the Roman poet Virgil is his favorite. He's known for coining several well-known phrases, such as fortune favors the bold and the greatest wealth is health. After graduating Davidson, he went to school in Lincoln, North Carolina, just outside of Fayetteville, for a few years before returning to his hometown of Selma, where he purchases the local pharmacy from his brother-in-law, Dr. Joshua Vick. Here he pursues his interest in chemistry and begins to develop his own line of proprietary family remedies. Aside from serving as the local druggist, Lunsford is actively involved in the Selma community. He is appointed trustee of the new Selma Academy and is tasked with finding a suitable principal for its students. He reaches out to his alma mater and is referred to graduating senior Henry Lewis Smith. Henry is one of several children of the Smith family here in Greensboro. Like Lunsford, he is a natural intellect and would go on to do great things throughout his life. As the only 2 graduates of Davidson College in Selma at the time, Henry and Lunsford become good friends. And through their friendship, Lunsford meets Henry's older sister, Mary Lynn, who was born in Virginia but moves to Greensboro with her family at an early age. She attends Edgewood College and is actively involved with her church and in the Greensboro community. Mary Lynn was also known to enjoy the game of cards, particularly in her later years. Her children recall that when asked to play bridge, her response was, "Well, I'm way too young to learn that game." Mary Lynn and Henry are children of Reverend Jacob Henry and Mary Kelly Watson Smith, who live in town here at the intersection of Church and Ministry. Reverend Smith serves as pastor of the First Presbyterian Church of Greensboro for over 37 years. Before long, Mary Lynn and Lunsford are married and begin raising a family of their own. At this time, Lunsford's parents had passed away years ago, and his brothers and sisters were spread throughout the state. So it is with the Smith family of Greensboro that Lunsford finds great comfort and support of the family he so desires. And even with his bustling pharmacy in Selma, Lunsford realizes that his business is in need of a larger market. Greensboro is the obvious choice. In late 1890, he and his family moved from Selma to Greensboro, and their house is built on Smith Street on a lot given to them by Maryland's parents. In Greensboro, Lunsford's first order of business is his purchase of Dr. Porter's drugstore, $5,000, which is located at 121 South End. In this store, a young William Sidney Porter, the nephew of Dr. Porter and childhood friends of Maryland's brothers, works as a drug clerk. William would later pursue a writing career and become famous in the community of Henry. Lunsford partners with John Ferris, another one of Dr. Porter's drug clerks, and forms the Richardson and Ferris drugstore. It is behind the prescription counter in this building that Lunsford develops his line of proprietary products and calls them Vick's Family Remedies. In 1894, his formula for the soon-to-be infamous fruit and pneumonia salve is finalized. So what's with the name Vick? Why not Richardson? Some of his children thought that Lunsford wasn't quite sold on the catchiness of the name Richardson's Family Remedies. And while he did love to spend time in his garden, some suggest it was the design of Vick Seed Company logo that catches his eye. However, the decision to use the name Vick is Lunsford's tribute to his brother-in-law, Dr. Vick, for all he did to help him get his start in pharmacy. This is further evidence in the use of the iconic triangular Vick trademark, with which we are all familiar, even throughout the design's numerous variations over the years. In the original triangular trademark, there's a picture of the face in each corner. Does anyone have any idea of the significance of this? These are the faces of Dr. Briggs' three children, Dora, George, and Ed, who are frequent patrons of Lunsford's Summer Pharmacy. Speaking of Lunsford's proprietary remedies, there were a total of 19 in the other bin. The Crippen and Pneumonia South was most known, but what about the others? Anyone name a few others? Cough drops. Pine tar cough syrup. Little liver pills. A few more interesting ones. I'd really like to know what the hot drops were. But let's go back to the salad, which originally consisted of 10 ingredients. Who can name a few? These ingredients are products of and come from all over the world. And though they may be readily accessible today, that certainly is not the case back in the 1890s. What I think is truly unique about this is the petroleum, the vehicle in which Lunsford South is delivered to the body, was first manufactured right here in the U.S. So hopefully the next time you pick up that familiar blue jar of Big Paper Rub, you will have a better appreciation of not just the story behind it, but also what's in it. And although his retail drugstore was successful in its own right, Lunsford is restless to pursue and devote more time and effort towards building up his remedies. In 1898, he sells his interest in the Richardson and Bear drugstore to form the L. Richardson Drug Company and enters the wholesale industry. Lunsford believes the wholesale business is more conducive to increasing the distribution of his remedies, especially during Greensboro's central location and railroads. Over the next 7 years, his business is successful, but still isn't quite what he was in search of. In the summer of 1905, at 51 years old, Lunsford makes his boldest move yet. He invests his life savings of $8,000 to organize what would become known as Dick's Family Remedies. 2 former employees from his wholesale business are hired to help with the manufacturing of his remedies in the 2 rooms of this building. And he also hires a local teenager to help us in delivering shipping rates. And his $3 were often helped. A couple of years later, Lunsford's oldest son, H. Smith Richardson, joins the business, and the company relocates to Milton Street. In 1911, the company's name changes to Big Chemical Company, followed by the renaming of Lunsford's increasingly popular salad to Big's Paper Rub. His youngest son, the third, and son-in-law will acquire him a few years later. In 1905, Lunsford convinces the U.S. Postal Service to mail circular advertisements to box holders instead of individual recipients, resulting in the first ever mass advertising campaign. A few years later, he convinces the Postal Service once again to mail sample bottles of Paper Rub to box holders. And as a result of these efforts, Lunsford earns the unofficial and dubious title of the father of junk mail. The timing of these advertising efforts is impeccable. As the Spanish flu continues to ravage the country, the demand for Paper Rub is at an all-time high. The company's production lines are operating 24 hours a day, with most employees working overtime, and it's seldom caught off their routes to help. When the Greensboro schools are forced to close due to the Spanish flu, over 60 teachers are out of work, and most of them come to work at Big's. By 1919, the Big Chemical Company night shift consists of World War I veterans who had recently returned home and were in desperate need of work. Employees often recall how the veteran soldiers were in constant need of being kept busy because they like to argue, fool around, and throw little blue jars at one another. Those same employees also remarked how touching it was to see these big, strong men who risk their lives in the defense of their country clumsily try to package little jars of Paper Rub in cartons of packing. Before long, the big chemical company is a blossoming Greensboro and North Carolina business, and well on its way to global success. The company is also known to take care of its employees. It even organizes its own bowling leagues, baseball teams, and has its own acapella group, which airs on local radio. Unfortunately, in the summer of 1919, while on a cross-country business trip with his son, Lunsford falls ill in Salt Lake City, Utah. He and his son make it to San Francisco, where he is admitted to the hospital. And on August 21st, Lunsford dies with Mary Land and some of his children by his side. Without question, both he and Mary Land were passionate about supporting the Greensboro community. And after his death, Mary Land continues to further his philanthropic endeavors in addition to her own. Lunsford makes it well known that he was a proud North Carolinian. He is always eager to help those in need and does so in a way that many of his benefactors are unknown, even to members of his immediate family. In tributes, memorials, and his obituaries, it was said of Lunsford that he always undertook the obligations of his stewardship seriously and gave earnest thought to his performance. Aside from running his business, Lunsford is an active member of the Greensboro community. Had he lived longer, I think it's fair to assume that he would have been involved with the local Rotary, perhaps this very chapel. And to this day, the benevolence of his good deeds and community involvement is clearly evidenced throughout Greensboro. Let's see how. Lunsford establishes and finances the construction of the Armstrong Sabbath School along East Market Street in a rough part of town that was known as the Bullpen. It was said that law enforcement would only travel to that part of town in pairs of 2 or more. According to Greensboro residents, only 3 people went into the Bullpen unaccompanied. One was Officer McFarland, who carries a tough reputation and is feared by all. The next was Lunsford Richardson, who goes to the Lord. And the third was a paperboy who doesn't know any better. In 1937, Mary Land and her 3 daughters purchased the vacant property and former building of the First Presbyterian Church of Greensboro. The building was renovated and enlarged and given to the city, a gift totaling over $225,000. The city renames the building Richardson Civic Center, which would serve the interests of the entire community for library, museum, and other public uses, and now houses the Greensboro History Museum. This certainly seems to me to be something that is true, fair, and beneficial to all. Lunsford also serves as a trustee of the Palmer Memorial Institute, which is founded by Dr. Charlotte Hawkins Brown in Sedgwick, a few miles east of town. Like Lunsford, Dr. Brown is a lifelong student of Latin, whose favorite poet just so happens to be Virgil. In 1917, Dr. Brown petitioned the state school board to include Latin in her classroom curriculum. Her request is denied but short-lived. Upon learning of the school board's decision to deny Brown's request, Lunsford contacts the powers that be, prompting a hasty reversal of its decision, and as a result, Dr. Brown's curriculum now includes the study of Latin. True, fair, beneficial to all? I would think so. During World War II, the leading African-American citizens of Greensboro petitioned the U.S. Maritime Commission to name a Liberty ship to honor the memory of Lunsford. Their petition details how he was always active in trying to promote cordial relations between the white and African-American citizens of Greensboro, and by his splendid example, did much to bring about a better understanding between the races. What a wonderful example of building goodwill and better friendship. The ship is built by the J.A. Jones Company, Charlotte, North Carolina, and its Brunswick, Georgia shipyard. Lunsford's children and grandchildren attend the christening, and the ship was launched in September 1944. On board, a plaque memorializing its name reads, "While founding an industrial empire of his own, he found time always to be of service to his fellow men." With the ever-present need for proper medical care and attention throughout the community, Lunsford ensures that no one goes without. And how do we know that? Well, we know that in 1916, as reported in the Greensboro Daily News, Lunsford arranges for the hiring of Mrs. Hannah Bull, a 1902 graduate of North Carolina A&T College, as the community nurse. For years, he pays her salary $40 a month, and also secures her an additional $5 a month, which is paid by A&T. Nurse Bull was known for making over 200 house visits a month, and was one of the first 3 female Aggies to earn a bachelor's degree. True, fair, builds goodwill and friendship, beneficial to all. Why, yes, I would say so. A few years after his death, local hospital was built and named in his honor for his lifelong commitment to equality. The hospital houses the latest modern-day medical equipment to provide the best medical attention and training opportunities for African American physicians, nurses, and interns. Construction is made possible with the gift of $50,000 from Mary Lynn and her daughters. At the dedication ceremony, the spokesperson for the hospital comments on its name. It says, "It is not only because the gift from his family was the largest, but because of Lunsford's well-known kindness and sacrifices for unfortunate community of the city." In 1970, the Center for Creative Leadership is founded by members of the Richardson family and with the support of the Smith Richardson Foundation, another incredible charitable organization that is also founded by Lunsford's oldest son. Its home office is located on Battleground Avenue with additional campuses across the globe. Center for Creative Leadership is known across the world as the leading institution for leadership development, with various programs in over 100 countries and counting. All along, Mary Lynn and Lunsford instill in their children the importance of family, which is evident to this day. So where do we, Lisa and I, fit in with all of this? Well, we are with Piedmont Trust Co, which was created in 1928 as the Richardson family office. At that time, there were 28 family members and 5 employees. Its initial purpose is to maintain bookkeeping, supervise investments, and assist with the corporate administrative operations of the Piedmont company. It also generally served as a central place for office for the family. Since then, there have been a few changes, including Piedmont's names and locations. Piedmont's first office was in New York, and the same building as its headquarters. 25 years later, after some corporate restructuring and consolidation, Piedmont returns home to downtown Greensboro. In 1985, the family avoids a hostile takeover attempt from Unilever and sells the company to Procter & Gamble. And as a result, the Richardson family becomes Piedmont's sole owner. In 2004, Piedmont is registered as the first private trust company in North Carolina. In 2010, Piedmont Capital Management, a registered investment advisor, is formed to provide additional investment opportunities for its clients. 1 year later, Piedmont opens its doors and accepts its first new non-Richardson client. In 2015, Piedmont Partners Fund is launched, which is a private fund that emulates the Richardson family's long-standing investment strategy. And most recently, Piedmont reorganized as a public trust company under the laws of North Carolina. And the family office continues to serve its originally intended purpose, while also adapting to meet and best serve the needs of the growing family. Piedmont now serves over 450 members of the Richardson family, which is now in its 6th and almost 7th generation. As the family's grown, so does Piedmont. But perhaps the most important function of Piedmont has and continues to be its role in promoting and furthering this notion of community within the family through what we call the family program. In the late 1950s, Rich Pryor prepared a report for the family entitled "A Plan for the Business and Financial Training of the Younger and Future Generation Family Members," in which he outlines key points to maintain and strengthen family unity for decades to come. In short, the family program serves to organize and host family meetings, which are held every 2 to 3 years, to publish biannual family newsletters, and to help prepare future generations for success by involving them with service in various boards, summer programs, and internship opportunities, and general investment in college or education. To me, I like to think Piedmont is a top-notch traditional family office whose structure and DNA is ingrained with the propensity to adapt and navigate through the ever-changing financial, tax, and legal landscape, and serving the evolving needs of the family, but also while prioritizing a focus on preserving and developing the vision, wisdom, and legacy of the Richardson family, as was intended by its founders. But perhaps a better way to describe what Piedmont is and does is to share some remarks from the family members over the generations. Piedmont now has 30 employees, consisting of investment specialists, accountants, CPAs, tax experts, and attorneys, all of whom provide an array of expertise in a multitude of service areas. So with that, that's all I have. I'm going to turn it over to Lisa. I appreciate your time.
That's the story of the Richardson family, an abbreviated story of where we came from and where we are today. We serve, since 2011, we now serve about 36 other families besides the Richardsons. And those families are not large families. They can be a Lisa, they can be a matriarch with children, or a patriarch with a large family, or just a single person. So we really specialize in what we call 3 legs: family office, full family office services, lots of fiduciary experience, and service trustee for over almost 400 trusts. And then we do a lot of investment planning for folks. So if you have any questions, I like to call Emery our resident historian. So he has a real he's very curious and has a great interest in history. So we value his expertise and research.
The 28 folks that trust of the Richardson family, how many are there now? There's grandchildren and grandchildren, married, marriages, and now come under the Richardson.
So there's over 400 Richardson family members alive, and they're almost in their 7th generation. I think there's maybe 2 3rd-generation folks living, and they're one of them's local. She will be 95 July 21st. She keeps telling people she's going to be 59 before she gets married. Yeah, so there's only 2 left of the Richardson family. The interesting thing about the family office is once you married into the family, you were a client forever. So I actually serve spouses of divorce, in divorce situations. But once you marry into the family, you were always or can always be a Richardson or a family office client. So lots of.
That's why I was wondering how many there are.
Yeah. So that not as many divorces as you would think. I think the rate would be lower than the national average divorce rate. So it's a fun business. I will celebrate my 20th anniversary later. Well, actually next month. I've been there 20 years. And have never been bored.
How old was he when he died? How old was he when he died?
54.
But this is pretty prior to marriage.
That was Will Pryor, considered the 2nd generation. He married a pharmacist. Yeah.
Hey, Mary Norris.
Mary Norris, the third daughter, the second.
We have a large family tree. If you're ever come to August and we can share that, we almost took a picture of it to share, but we updated because historically, we've always coordinated a family. They've always had a family meeting every other year. So because of COVID, we stretched it out to 3 years. So we update the family tree, which is on 3 or 4 big plaques, and we take it to the family meeting wherever that is, generally in the resort, Kiowa Island, somewhere like that, and then we bring it back and hang it on the wall. So the strategy behind opening the doors to serve other families is not to ever grow to become a U.S. trust and sell the business. It is really, the mission is to really sustain the family office for future generations and to share best practices. Since I've been there, the Richardsons have always been very generous in sharing our best practices with other families, and we consult with a lot of other families. And, you know, if you've seen one family office, you've seen one family office, but the Richardson Piedmont Trust Company is one of the oldest family offices around, 90 plus years. Been together, and we think that's probably because the secret sauce is their governance. They've been very serious about just structure and getting together, and their board is very, very organized. They've been very organized. The family meetings also keep people
If a family member comes to you, what service do you provide to them?
anything. Anything financial related. So for a lot of fifth generation, or, college age kids, for instance, we do a lot of education about finances. We help kids with budgets. We do a lot of estate planning. We do a lot of retirement planning for fourth generation. Children that have age 21 trust. We have what we like to call the talk. Once they become old enough and we know those assets are coming to them personally, we sit down and have serious conversations with them and talk to them about the responsibility of being good stewards of their money.
So they're inheriting this money as family members and benefits.
We don't manage all of the Richardson assets. Of course, folks have assets other places that are managed outside of Piedmont, but we do manage the majority of the Richardson family's assets.
Yeah, I like to think we help the youth, the younger generations, become responsible with their inheritance so that they can use it as they need it and pass it along. And age 21, that's a critical age. You've got to have that talk, do it the right way. And that's one of the things I enjoy the most.
It's an inheritance they get from their immediate family, or they become part of a Richardson something.
Yes and yes. And in addition to what Lisa said, I mean, really, I get questions, all sorts of questions. Just recently, I was asked by an elderly community member a question about Facebook. How do I do this on Facebook? Every day is fun, never a dull moment.
The most unusual request I got with my tenure there is I had one of my older clients call and wanted to know if I could find out what was in a furniture polish that she had and she used in her business. And so I happened to have one of my colleagues' husband was a chemist. So took the furniture polish and he took it off, did his thing, came back and told her what was in this furniture set out with us. But we don't really say no. we like to say, we've told people before, we do everything. You become very endeared to, or I have, and when you work with these families and you work with their children, you know, so you see them grow, so you become like their second parents.
So like a museum of the old Vicks vapor rub or Vicks whatever bottles and whatever somewhere in Greensboro or somewhere to be found?
Yeah, there's a great exhibit at the Greensboro History Museum.
Oh,
if you haven't been, I would encourage you. That is a fantastic place. They have Lunsford's original desk right there on display. Of course, there's quite a bit of artifacts in our office.
A lot of the family members have collected artifacts over the years, and we do have some displayed in the office as well. But the Greensboro Historical Museum has a replica of the pharmacy, which is fabulous exhibit. It's great.
So does Procter and Gamble now own all like the Vicks brand? I mean, in the family, I mean, you're not connected to that. That was sold long ago. You're just dealing with the money.
Right. That became, so there was concerns when the company was sold to Procter and Gamble, whether or not the family would stay together, and they, pulled together this big family meeting, and they anticipated that a lot of the family would just kind of take their buyout and leave the family office, but that wasn't the case. But that was a huge liquidity event, which required a lot of investing at that point.
Back to your question, in addition to the Greensboro History Museum, if you go out to the Center for Creative Leadership, on display right there in the lobby is the 1 billion jar.
Wow. Well, so I'm good friends with a member of the family, and a few years ago, they were tearing down a warehouse near the railroad station, and they dug up the stash. Evidently, it was just been put in a corner and left there. And thousands of these tiny little mail order bottles. And a lot of them actually had viable Vicks vapor rub in them. 1918, 1920, whatever. So I think it depressed the value of that stuff for a while.
Interesting tidbit. So GP worked at the Center for Creative Leadership. My father came back from his stint in the Navy in the Korean War, went to work for Richardson Vicks and worked there and retired from Procter & Gamble. So I have lots of connections to the Richardson family. So the Procter & Gamble stock has served my family well.
We had 7th generation. How do you, somebody did how hard is that to pass the values and the vision? Richardson, we got that conversation.
For some, it's easier than others. And you're right. And as the family grows, the growth is exponentially more. And not every family member will stay. Of course, the door's always open. But I think in my practice, I have found the best approach is to really engage the younger generations from day one. And I think when we have these age 21 meetings, the financial talk with them, that has to be done right. Again, it's a critical age, and I like to start that off with the family's philanthropy. Here's a picture of it. It does become more and more difficult.
It's more challenging, and we're always looking for creative ways to engage the 6 generations. Any other questions? Well, thank y'all, and thanks, Emery. I have one thing to
Over here, 507-494.
You missed it.
We have a winner.
Members wrote, if anybody's interested, you can give this to Dale. One number.